Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Katie LeBoutillier, and today I'm joined by Cam Stirling and Clint Householder.
From the little leagues
to the pros.
This is your weekly sports show.
Welcome to the Shutter Sports Podcast.
Take a seat at the table as we discuss.
On this episode, we will be discussing the NHL playoffs from what already went down to our predictions for everything that's going to happen before someone takes the cup home. Today, we will recap the first round, talk about the second round matchups, and give you our overall predictions for the playoffs. Before we start, we want to remind you that everything we say on here is our own opinions. However, whether you agree or disagree, we invite you to join the discussion on Instagram at ShuttersportMedia or Twitter at ShuttersportsM. Alright, so let's start with the first round matchups. Just kind of recapping each series a little bit. Let's go with everyone's probably least favorite series as far as the team in it, which is Vegas. Dallas versus Vegas. How happy was everyone to see Vegas lose?
Honestly, I'm a bit of a Vegas fan, so I was a little disappointed, to be honest. But I think it was a hard-fought series, so it was a lot of entertaining games. Like, every single game was either one goal or empty netter, so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as a Canucks fan, it's always a nice day to see the Vegas Golden Knights lose, and they've been on a pretty decent hot streak since they became a team, so... I mean, seeing them lose to the Dallas Stars was pretty good, especially with every single game being as entertaining as it was, and every single one of them being within 2 goals, so it was a very entertaining series overall.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really on that Vegas hate train either. I had them winning the first round, actually. Like, that was the only first round matchup I got wrong, so I was kind of just more annoyed that they ended up losing and ridding me of my perfect first round. But yeah, it was a super exciting series with just a ton of close games. And one thing I have to say about that series is I want to go see a game in Dallas. Their home crowd looked amazing.
I think they assaulted a Vegas fan. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, well...
So don't cheer for the other team. Do not cheer for the other team.
Someone give me a Dallas
Stars
jersey
game.
so I can go.
Yeah. Did you see all the drama online? It was so the Stars lost the first 2 at home, and apparently there's a guy behind the net that bangs on the glass. And I saw the Spittin' Chicklets podcast was they need to ban this guy. He's throwing off Jake Ottinger. That's the reason they lost. It was really funny. Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on the Dallas Vegas series besides don't go there dressed in the other team's jersey?
I just want to say, if I was a Stars fan, I would be a little concerned. I'm not gonna lie. I know it was a hard-fought series, and I know Vegas is really good, but I watched a lot of that, and Hurdle and Stone did not look like they were 100%. I don't think they were anywhere near where we expected them to be. So I don't think Vegas was fully healthy and fully strong, and I don't think Dallas had a great showing this series. If you look at a lot of their top guys, they didn't do anything. Hintz got 1 point. It was 1 empty net goal that he it was really lucky for him to even get it. It just bounced over Theodore's stick and basically gave him a free goal, and I don't think he did really anything else the entire series. And then of the other, one of their main strengths throughout the whole season was just how deep they were as a team and, how many different guys had scored for them. And, Pavelski got no points. Duchesne only got 2. Stankoven had 2. Ben had 3. And then, Robertson only had 5. So, Wyatt Johnston emerged, but the rest of the team didn't really do anything. So I'd be a little nervous there. And, Heiskanen and Robertson were both -5 and -6, which, I know plus-minus, isn't the best stat, but I think if you're -5 and -6 in 7 games, that's not really a great look.
Yeah, Dallas just simply doesn't have the firepower that the rest of the Western Conference teams do. I mean,
yeah,
especially against their second round matchup against Colorado, it'll come down to how well Ottinger plays. He's gonna need to carry the team if they're putting up stats like they did in the first round.
Yeah, and I think Colorado's offense is just a lot more high-flying than Vegas.
Right.
Vegas is a better matchup for Dallas because they're, more of a deeper team, but, they don't really have that, superstar. Eichel's really great, but he's not, a 1A superstar like McKinnon or, some could even argue, Rantanen, at least offensively. So I think when Dallas has to fight, a more offensive-minded team and, great offense that Colorado has, I'll be a little concerned seeing that their depth didn't really show up in this series, and I don't know how strong that D-core actually is defensively. So I'd be a little nervous for the second round.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to overcome the fact that they probably don't have a top 3 player in the series under Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, and Cale Makar. So
Yeah.
it'll be a tough one.
They got to pray that Georgiev gets lit up.
They'll really have to win the goalie battle in that one, which they could. Ottinger has the potential to carry them through that series, but yeah, he can't do it without any offense. So.
Yeah, and I think Ottinger has a bit of a overrated playoff track record. I know you had that one amazing series against Calgary 2 years ago. But since then, he hasn't been that great. Last year, he wasn't really that good. I know at least in the Seattle series, I'm a Seattle fan, so I watched that one, and he didn't look that good, and Seattle isn't that good offensively. We are not an offensively skilled team, and he did not look good there. And then Vegas lit him up in the conference finals. And I know last year Vegas lit up every goalie, but I think he's not as elite as we would have thought after the Calgary series a couple of years ago. Then we would have been oh my god, he's going to be one of the best playoff goalies of our time. But he's kind of fallen back since then.
Yeah, so then heading over to, we'll kind of talk about the Winnipeg-Colorado matchup and retouch on Vegas-Colorado and what's to come. But yeah, looking at that other first-round matchup, Winnipeg-Colorado, what do we see?
Not much defense.
I mean, other than the first game, it was a clobbering, honestly.
Yeah, and even in that first game, Colorado outplayed them. Georgiev was just horrible.
Yeah.
But once Georgiev was decent, Winnipeg didn't stand a chance. And they had no, I know last year there was a whole Rick Bowness no pushback rant, but they had no pushback in this series. I think it was games 3 and 4, or maybe even 4 or 3 and 4. 2 and 3. But in 2 straight games, they blew a 2-goal lead in the third period to get to a 5-2 score, and it was just really, really tough showing there for Winnipeg.
Cam, anything to add?
I mean, this one's pretty brief, to be honest. I mean, it was nowhere near the close matchups that we had in the Dallas-Vegas series, except for the first one. Like Clint said, Georgiev just got crushed. So that's one thing to look out for going against high-powered teams if they do make it past Dallas, like Edmonton or Vancouver, with a lot of offensive power. They're going to need Georgiev to step up, and he did not do that in the Winnipeg series.
Yeah. Another thing, Val Nichushkin had 7 goals in 5 games.
That's ridiculous.
I was on fire. He had no assists. He was allergic to passing the puck, but yeah. Scoring 7 goals on 41% shooting is insane.
On Hellebuck, too, that's nuts.
I've seen a lot of Winnipeg fans and people around the internet blaming Hellebuck.
That's crazy.
I don't know. I know you want your Vezina goaltender to make some more saves, and I totally agree with that. There were some that he probably should have had, but how many of the goals that he let in can you be oh yeah, that was his fault? I was watching it the one goal Pionk scored on his own net, and there were so many times especially on the Colorado power play where there was just a dude. Oftentimes, either Lehkonen or Nichushkin, who were both a goal per game or over, who just left, completely wide open. And, of course, those guys are going to bury it if you leave them wide open. So I think a lot more would be on the defense. I think if they shore up the defense, then I think Hellebuck will be better. I think he gets overblamed for this round.
Yeah, to an extent, though. I mean, it's pretty hard to deny that Hellebuck didn't do anything wrong because Colorado scored 5+ goals in every single game of the series. That's pretty hard to make the goalie innocent, you know?
Yeah, I'm not saying he's completely innocent.
Yeah.
There are definitely some where he should have had, but there was just I think he's getting more blame than I think the defense has got, and I don't think that's fair.
Right.
The defense was atrocious. They were really bad, and there were definitely some he should have had, but I don't think that many of them were egregiously his fault.
Yeah, I think this was to be expected as well. Winnipeg was definitely looking like a regular season team this year with a lot of unexpected success. So, I mean, this one wasn't too big of a shock for me.
Yeah, and one thing for at least the Winnipeg side, they were supposed to be a deep team going into it. They traded for Toffoli, they traded for Monahan at the deadline. They
Right.
had the three.
Yeah, they
three
looked
good
like they were
lines.
going for some playoff
then,
success at the deadline.
Yeah, they had at least a very deep forward core, and then none of them really showed up.
Right.
Especially the third lines. I think at least fans were expecting okay, Colorado's got the top end talent to get the advantage there, but Winnipeg has the deeper forward core, and people thought they had the better defense, or not the better defense, sorry, the better goaltending. But like that Winnipeg bottom six did not show up. And I think, especially in like game 5, I don't know why they still had Cole Perfetti scratched. Like, they needed some offense, and they were scratching him for like Axel Jonsson-Fjällby. Like, no disrespect to Fjällby, like, he's a good fourth liner, but like when you need to score goals, I think leaving Perfetti out of the lineup, who is a good, talented young forward, I think that was a bit of a head-scratching move.
Yeah, for sure. And, like, again, with that first game, it looked like it was going to be a shootout, and then Colorado just kind of proved why they've been a good playoff team over and over again. Like, they just kind of locked down and had that playoff mindset, and there was no beating them then.
They had, like, 8 guys that were a point per game or above. That's kind of crazy. Like, they just have so much offensive talent. It's just insane.
Yeah, and then looking to the second round, them against Dallas. We kind of touched on it, but any predictions for that series?
I still think Colorado's offensive power is going to overpower Dallas. I mean, Dallas does get the more home ice advantages with the higher seed, but it like I said, it'll come down to Ottinger, same as Hellebuck. I mean, if the defense on Dallas doesn't prevail, Colorado's going to take advantage and abuse their offensive power.
I'm going to have to side with Cam here.
I mean, especially if players like Val Nichushkin are putting up 7 goals in 5 games. I mean, like, Colorado still has the depth and the top 3 players in the series. I mean, I'm going with Colorado. Keeping it simple.
I'm going to have to agree with Cam. Just like we saw in the Winnipeg series, like, I think going into this series, what you think of when you see these two teams match up, it's like, okay, Colorado's got the high-end talent, and then Dallas has the better depth, is what people thought going into the playoffs, and they think Dallas has the better goaltending. Well, Winnipeg had better goaltending, or at least you would expect Hellebuck to be better than Ottinger, and they made him look like bad. Like, they lit him up 5 goals a game, and then like the Dallas depth didn't show up against Vegas, and Colorado showed that they were effectively able to shut down Winnipeg's depth. So I just think this is a really good matchup for Colorado. I like them in this series. I don't know who's going to answer to the McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Makar offense. Like, I don't know who's going to step up and produce like that on the Dallas side. So I think I'd have to lean for Colorado here.
Yeah, I'd agree too. Dallas has kind of been running the same team for a while, and they've fallen short every playoffs, and they haven't changed that much in the past few years, so I don't know what they're expecting to change in the playoffs. Like, if they don't change the team or the way they do it, not much is going to change results-wise, and Colorado's just been so successful in the playoffs in the past few years.
Yeah. Besides, like, the upset to Seattle, like, Colorado's been great in, like, all of the most recent postseasons, so I think there's just more of a track record there.
Yeah, for sure. And then moving on, we'll let Cam talk about his Canucks a bit. Nashville, Vancouver, that series was also a good one.
That was a very good one. It was looking pretty bleak for the Canucks when Demko and DeSmith went down. But, I mean, Siloff stepped up. I don't know how we're going to do with the firepower in Edmonton the second round, but beating Nashville was a really good test run for this, like, brand new looking Canucks team. And, like, with a lot of fresh faces when it comes to playoff experience. I mean, beating Nashville in 6 with a third-string goalie, Brock Besser really stepping up with the hat trick in, I believe, game 5 or 6. And, yeah, I mean, it'll all come down whether Siloff plays well in the second round and keeps up his really good previous play against Nashville. Because like, Edmonton is undoubtedly a much stronger offensive team than Nashville is.
I think, at least for me, I'm a little concerned with Vancouver going forward, not just on, like, the Seelov's part. Like, you can, like, argue that Vancouver got outplayed in 2 of the games that they won. Like, the game that Besser had that hat trick, like, Nashville was the better team, and same with game 1. So I think you can definitely argue that Vancouver got lucky to win, and, like, a lot of their guys didn't really show up. Like, Nashville's not that great.
Pedersen was a big blank
especially at the start
of the series. I believe he only had 3 assists, 0 goals in the series. we need him to perform better if we're going up against Connor McDavid
I just
and
like
Leon Draisaitl.
I didn't see enough from like Vancouver's top end talent. Like other than Besser and like Miller looked pretty good, I think, and even Hughes. But like past that, like I don't know if relying on Dakota Joshua and like Lindholm and Garland, I don't know if relying on that line to produce is gonna work when you're playing against McDavid and Draisaitl, who have like shown every single year those guys are just beasts in the playoffs. I think if Vancouver's guys don't step up to that level, like that's a tough look, and especially when you're down to like your third string goaltender, which like, I think Sealoves might be better than DeSmith anyways. He was excellent.
I believe that
he was
the entire
excellent in the
series,
in the World IIHF World Championships last year. He helped lead Latvia to their first bronze medal, and they were so excited about it. They declared a national holiday. So like he is a big game warrior. So I think Sealoves is better than DeSmith there, at least in my opinion. But yeah, I'd be really scared. And going from like a Philip Forsberg led offense shooting against you to a like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman offense is just that's a big jump. And I don't know.
It's a definitely a change of scenery.
He's going to be ready for that.
This isn't the IIHF. Yeah.
Yeah. Vancouver had a good series, I think. Like, they showed that, well, I don't know, Canadian teams aren't used to, like, not blaming all the injuries on a series, and I think Vancouver did that well. They kind of just took everything in stride and didn't blame any injuries or anyone being out, and they just kept playing, whereas if you look over at the Leafs series, not exactly what happened there. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, an underrated aspect of what helped Vancouver get past the series was Rick Tocchet. I believed ever since he got hired that he just changed the overall atmosphere of the locker room. Instead of going from Hamburger Bruce and like everybody just have fun, and going to hard-nosed Rick Tocchet who like win or go home every single game. And this entire team and this entire aura on this roster has changed over the last season, and that's because of Rick Tocchet. So I think when Demko went down and DeSmith went down, they rallied around the spirit that Rick Tocchet brings to that locker room, and like they weren't going to give up. On
a similar aspect,
Simple
I think
as that.
this was a really strong year and showing for Nashville, and like the system that they had in place was like perfect for playoff hockey. Like ton of hits, ton of block shots. If they were able to add some like scoring to in the offseason, and they can get Saros back, like they decide not to trade him, maybe look to extend him, like I think they could be a sneaky team next year. 'Cause I think this year they didn't have like the like they obviously didn't have the high end goal scoring to like win them a playoff series, but I think like they have an elite defenseman in Yossi. I think if they like maybe add a little bit more firepower up front, and they have that elite goaltending, and like everyone's bought into the system. You got Ryan O'Reilly as your captain, who's like proven Stanley Cup winner. I think they could be a bit of a stunner next year. I think some teams might get surprised at how well they do if they play their cards right in the offseason. I'd be really excited if I was a Nashville fan right now.
Yeah, they definitely had a very good second half of the season with, what was it, a 15-game
after
win streak or
the
something
YouTube
like that?
show.
Yeah, and like adding Jason Zucker and Anthony Beauvillier for barely anything at the deadline, I mean, it's a pretty good looking roster going into next season.
Yeah, especially like they have a lot of like underrated young talent. Like I like Evangelista, his growth for next year, and same with like Phil Tomasino. So I think they are slept on.
I love Luke Evangelista. Yeah,
London Knights legend.
Oh yeah.
All right, moving on to who Vancouver will be facing in the second round. It was the Edmonton Oilers and LA Kings. What about that series, and who do we think is taking the second round?
I mean, LA Kings is getting to that point where they are a staple to be a first round exit every single year. I mean, they're just in a hard they're just in a hard division, man. I mean, they're just perpetually mid, but they somehow get into the playoffs every time, and then get wiped in the first round by Edmonton because they just can't control it. So I don't know what the Kings need to do to make their roster better, but like they got to get a step up in their division, man.
I will say on the Kings, I think the Oilers are such a brutal matchup for the Kings. Like the Kings just don't have enough like high end offensive talent to fight the firepower, and like besides Doughty and Anderson, like their decor isn't that strong. I know they have a really great defensive system in place, and that they get like good results out of them, but like when like other than Doughty and even Mikey Anderson, like who do you trust out there against McDavid and Draisaitl? Like it's just such a high powered offense, and especially like that power play, like they did nothing to adjust to the Oilers power play. It's like when you play a team 3 years in a row, you got to adjust. And I think like just they clearly don't have the answers for Edmonton. For them for next year, I would just be like hoping and praying that they don't get matched up against the Oilers. Like if I was a Kings fan, I was like, just give us anybody else. I think they would have had a good shot if they played like the Canucks or like even the Stars. I think they'd have a better shot against, just because I think that's a better like matchup fit for them. But yeah, definitely another tough look for the Kings in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's really hard to adjust to the Oilers' power play just because they are just so skillful and so strong. Like, even after adding Zach Hyman to the mix and him having arguably his best season of his career, it was doomed from the start for the LA Kings.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm worried about with the Canucks, because since the first half of the season it was going great, but our second half of the season, our penalty kill has been absolutely atrocious. And like that's the Oilers are going to take advantage of that every single time. It's going to be a scary series, especially if Demko does not come back.
Yeah, and that Oilers power play, I think it clicked at like 50% in the first round. Or it was like around 50, and I know because I was listening to the game on my way back from the Grand Rapids game that I was at on Wednesday, and they scored like 2 goals, like I think it was 3 and 4 seconds after the like LA Kings penalties expired, it's like before the guy could get back into the play. So basically their power play was at like 52, like 55% through the first round, which is just insane. Like that Canucks penalty kill better get it together quick, man, or it's gonna be tough.
Oh my god. Yeah.
And that's like one thing, like I know I said Sealovs is a winner, but like I think there's going to be a lot of nerves when you go from facing Forsberg, like I already mentioned this, Forsberg to McDavid, and especially like if that power play clicks and they start lighting him up, they start like getting to him early, I think his mindset, I don't know the guy personally, so like I don't know how tough of a mindset he's got, but like I think that for a rookie goaltender, like I think that's got to be a little scary, and I think I wouldn't be surprised if he got a little shaken up early and then just kind of lost his mojo.
Yep. And as I said, like this series specifically is going to be one that they're going to really lean on Rick Tocchet to keep them strong mentally and strong physically, and stick to the game plan no matter how much firepower the Oilers brings to Silovs. And yeah, it's definitely going to be a close matchup. Demko is week to week, so it is possible that he comes back by the end of the series. But then again, it's hard to bet against McDavid and Draisaitl when Vancouver Canucks have barely any playoff experience.
Yeah, and I think I just saw today that like Demko has been ruled out until at least Game 4, and I think like when the Canucks already who don't have that much playoff experience, but if they're missing their star goaltender for the first like at least 3 to 4 games, like I don't think they'll be winning the series. Like I don't like in Nashville they were winning with a backup goalie. I don't think they'll be winning the series if Demko comes back in like Game 5. Like I don't see it being that close of a series. I think they'll be at a disadvantage once Demko comes in, if he even does come back at all. So I think I'd be a little hesitant for the Canucks here.
Yeah, the primary way I can see Vancouver pulling this off is taking advantage of Stuart Skinner and like his inability to stay consistent. Because we've seen Skinner absolutely crumble in the playoffs. And if Brock Besser puts on another series like he did, and if Pettersson steps up like he should, I could see Canucks taking some offensive power that they have of their own and blasting away on Skinner.
Yeah, I do think Skinner gets a little overhated for me because like last year he got lit up against Vegas, but like every single goaltender in the playoffs last year got lit up by Vegas. So I think it is a little overrated. Like, besides that, like, he's looked great against the Kings. Like, I know it's the Kings, but, like, especially this series, he looked good. Like, he stole them, I think it was Game 4. Like, the Kings threw everything at him. And he was able to carry his team out to a 1-0 shutout win there. So I think I wouldn't bet on that too much of just, like, breaking Skinner down. Like, even if Skinner's bad, like, I don't think he'll be bad enough to make the Oilers lose here.
Yeah, it'll definitely... it'll definitely be a close matchup. If Vancouver could take 1 or 2 games at home, start off the series with a win, I could see the momentum carrying to until Demko comes back, if he comes back at game 4 or 5. So it'll really rest on how those early games go with Silovs and net until we get like a better sense of how the Canucks are going to play against this type of team.
Yeah, and so that rounds out the west side. So moving on to east, let's start with Carolina Islanders. That one was done really quick.
That was a bit of a snooze fest.
Yeah, the Islanders have been a snooze fest all year. Didn't do anything at the deadline. Weren't looking like a championship contender. Carolina is a bit of a wagon now, but they have a hard round 2 matchup. So I don't really know. Yeah, there's nothing really to talk about this series. Like Clint said, it was a snooze fest.
No, for me, the one thing is I would be a little concerned if I was a Hurricanes fan. Like, I know you got the win in 5. Like, you made it to the second round. That's all that really matters. But
yeah, their
there
one
were,
loss
some
came
points,
in double OT.
Yeah, and but there were some points, I know they had that insane 3-goal comeback, or it was they scored 3 goals in I think it was 2 minutes or something like that, including the empty netter, in I believe game 2. But I just the fact that they were losing in that one, and I think there were some areas where they didn't look as strong as you would hope for your I think they've been the cup favorites for many fans and many analysts. So I think they didn't look as strong as you were hoping. I think they can put it together. Are we allowed to talk about the game 1 of the series against the Rangers?
Yeah, go for it, since it literally happened before first round was over.
Yeah, which great scheduling, but also they took some undisciplined penalties, especially the D'Angelo one. He's so lucky he only got 2 minutes for that. That was an elbow to the face. That was very lucky. If that was the regular season, he probably gets a 5 in a game. So is when you're playing a team that has as good of special teams as the Rangers, taking undisciplined stupid penalties is not good, and that's an easy way to put your team in a hole, and that's what we saw in game 1. So I think for Carolina, they need some of their stars to click a little bit more. Aho and Gensel, I thought could have done a little bit more. I know they were just under a point per game through 6 games here, but I think they could do a little bit more. And Jarvis has looked great. Seth Jarvis looked phenomenal. But I think they need to step up just a little bit if you're going to beat the Rangers, especially if you're going to keep taking these stupid penalties. But I think it's stuff that they can iron out of their game, and I think they'll have a pretty decent shot here in the second round.
Yeah, Carolina's facing arguably the most well-rounded team in the playoffs, and New York's my pick to make it out of the East, so they're really gonna have to step it up after the semi-close matchups against New York. They like you said, they completely should have wiped them and done more than they did.
Yeah, I think their biggest issue too is they never got ahead. They always they won most of the games, but it just felt like they were on their heels the whole time, and they had to make these rallies and make these
They did not seem like
they
the
weren't
better team.
No, they weren't controlling it, and if they even their first game against the Rangers, which is a tougher matchup, but they still didn't score first. They need to start getting out ahead and not having to play on their heels the whole game, especially when you're putting the other team on the power play that often.
Yeah, and when you look the Colorado and the Carolina series, they both went to 5 games. I think completely different outlooks. The Colorado one was okay, you lost 1 game because your goalie was bad, and then you blew them out 4 games in a row. This Carolina game, it was not they just dominated the Islanders. I know that there was some where it's they dominated them shot wise at least, but Carolina with their system, they're a grind you out kind of team. They don't let you shoot, and they tend to throw a lot of low score or low danger scoring chances towards the net, and when those aren't going in, if you're not getting lucky on the low the low grade chances, their offense isn't that amazing, at least not high end. So I think they really need to work on cashing in the high end chances that they do get.
Yeah, and that comes again with their high end talent being better than they were first round, because you were saying, Aho especially kind of wasn't a standout as much as he could be. And yeah, that's definitely, they'll need to work on that. And then speaking of who they're against, Rangers played Washington in the first round. Speaking of snooze fests, let's talk about that one real quick.
That was as
clobbering.
close to a bye as you get, man. That was free.
Capitals shouldn't even have been in the playoffs, bro.
Yeah, I'm still mad about that.
You know what was funny though is when I was looking at we did a podcast for the trade deadline and our predictions for the cup, and I was like, oh, we were really good. Like everything was kind of spot on. Like we predicted it really well, and then somehow, like obviously we didn't have Capitals in the playoffs at all. We had them like second last tier, like close to you get Celebrini, but not quite, obviously. And I was like, oh, I was just like baffled. I thought like everything else we did a really good job predicting, and then that goes to show that Washington just should not have been in the playoffs.
No,
Yeah.
they are
Like, to
not
be
a
fair,
playoff team.
I think they were closer to where we ranked them than an actual playoff team. Like they were not good. They were minus 37 on the year. Like they won a lot of like 1-goal games. Like I think their records, like they had like 2 losses or like 2 regulation losses or something like that in 1-goal games, and then like they just got blown out when they lost. Like they were not a good team, and I think they got lucky that like at least Detroit got hurt down the end of the stretch, and they were lucky that Pittsburgh like was pretty bad this year. Like that was. Maybe I'm just being biased here, but that was like maybe the weakest playoff team we've seen in a little while. Like they were not good. They had like no finishing. Like Ovechkin was like a net negative in the first round. That was insane. Like no points at all. Like I think he had like 2 shots or something like that. He was just terrible.
That's why I like the second round, because the playoff frauds are done, and we get to see a team like the Rangers go up against the actual contender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that'll help you kind of judge more, because obviously everyone's been saying Rangers are definitely a cup contender all season, but now we actually get to see them challenged and see how far they can make it.
Yeah, we'll see a legit 7-series match, like 7-game matchup for the Rangers. This is going to be a close one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And predictions coming out of this round, I think I gotta go with Rangers. I want Carolina, but I just think the Rangers overpower them.
I feel the exact same way. I think it's going to be Rangers in 6 unless Carolina's top tier guys start playing better than they did against the Islanders.
I'm going to go on the other end here, and I'm going to go Carolina.
Yeah.
I think like the problems that they have are more fixable. Like I think like the don't take stupid penalties. Like the Rangers are a very like special teams reliant team. Like Mika Zibanejad was their top point scorer so far. He's got 10 points in 5 games. Only 3 of those are even strength points. Like he's struggled. Like it's been a talking point all year that like the Kreider, Zibanejad, and whoever the right winger line like has not been great in 5-on-5. And I think if you can just keep them to 5-on-5, you don't take undisciplined dumb penalties like they did in game 1. I think they can definitely like compete here with this Rangers team. And I do definitely think they have the bottom 6 advantage. And if they can just like slow the Zibanejad Kreider line, like obviously Panarin's the best player in the series, I think. But past that, like there is an argument for like multiple like Canes guys to be next. Like I think, or I guess like Fox as well. Fox is up there, but I think like Svechnikov, Aho, Gensel, like I think they're all right there. Even like you could throw in Jarvis with how he's playing right now.
I was just gonna
so
say
I think
that,
they do
yeah.
have just like a much deeper team, and besides like Panarin and Fox, I don't think the top end talent is that much better on the Rangers. So I think I am going to go with Carolina here, and I do trust Rod the Bod Brindamore to get him in check for next game.
I like that take. Okay, and then heading on up in the bracket, we've got Toronto-Boston. Just a tale as old as time. What a fun series to watch.
That was the most predictable series.
Ever.
Ever.
It over the last decade, it's been the exact same story. Leafs go down 3-1, make it to Game 7, blow a third period lead, and lose in overtime.
Yeah. It's tale as old as time, man.
Yep. It's scripted by this point.
Yeah, I do think earlier we had mentioned like about like the Leafs guys like not showing up or whatever, or not playing through injuries. Like
I wasn't saying we were talking about
was it the Canucks?
And I wasn't saying that they weren't playing through them. I was saying the fans are so quick to blame the injuries, and I feel like the team might have been too. Like they're like, oh well, our injured guys are injured, doesn't count. But then you look at a team like Vancouver where they're like next man
why
up
didn't
mentality.
they play Joseph Wall?
Yeah.
Sammy sold the bag.
That's like I wasn't blaming the players. If you're injured, stay out. Especially like people were saying Nylander with the head thing. Like if he's concussed, let him sit. He wasn't. He played. But like, don't be so quick to be like, it's playoffs. Play for your concussion. Don't do that.
Yeah, and one thing like they played better when Matthews was
Yeah,
out. Like,
for
they
sure.
won. Didn't he miss 2 games and they won both?
Yeah, they
when
won
he
the
was
2
out,
that he
and then he
missed.
showed up for game
Yeah.
7, and then they lost.
100%.
Like, I'm not saying Matthews is the problem, but like, you can't scapegoat the Matthews injury.
No.
If you want to do like scapegoat the
Nylander, maybe,
Nylander one
yeah.
for like, oh, we would have won one of game 1 and 2. Okay, I understand that, but like the Matthews one, and also on like the Matthews, like I saw so many people like flaming him like because he's missing for being sick, or like they're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like you're not playing through a sickness, but I'm certain there was more there. Like, I don't know if you saw, like, the McAvoy takedown on Matthews, like, Leafs fans were very upset about online, and they thought it should have been a penalty. It looked like he got hurt there, and then he was, like, slow moving on his knee after that. And, like, I saw, like, doctors online were, like, saying, like, it looks like he could have, like, stressed, like, something in his knee. So I think it was part injury as well. I think they just didn't want to disclose that because they knew, like, that, like, he was hopefully going to come back for game 7. And, like, you don't want to tell the Bruins, who are, like, a bit notorious for being a bit of a dirty or goonier team.
No.
You don't want to be like, yeah, our star player is hurt on his right
Yeah.
knee. Like, you don't want to disclose what's going on. So I think it was a little bit of, like, hiding that, little like,
Especially such a
Spygate there.
rivalry like that. Boston's going to take advantage.
Well, I also think he did say
Yeah,
that. He said
so-
he was sick and took a hard hit, and that makes sense. But
Yeah,
also,
so I think there was definitely a Matthews injury there.
yeah, you could also, they did the same thing with Nylander. Like, it was a question to everybody whether he was in for the first few games, what he was out with, and it didn't come out till he was in what he was out with. Like, they were being very
Yeah.
secretive about everything, and it, like, didn't really make much of a difference. It was the same series we've seen 100 times. But speaking to the Bruins, though, heading into the next round, one thing they do need to work on as of lately is scoring in the first period. They started off the series great with that, and they were on fire, totally, like, attacking and not, like, back on their heels. But as the series came to an end, we saw, like, it was just kind of silent. Like, it was, like, sudden death until the third period, and then it was kind of that next goal wins mentality in the third period. Lately, they have been good at, like,
Yeah.
responding right away. Like, first game against Florida scored first, immediately Bruins hopped back on, and we saw that in game 7 too. But they're going to have to work on offense first and scoring on, like, getting on the board first and not having to play on their heels. Same as, like, Carolina. Like, they just lately have been behind the play and not really getting the offense going to start.
And another thing for Boston, like, I think they're going to need more out of David Pastrnak. Like, I know he had that huge Game 7 overtime winner, but
Yeah,
if he
for
wasn't,
sure.
like, and his coach called him out, and it was like, he needs to play better. Like, the coach said this, that
Yeah.
he needs more from Pastrnak. And, like, I know he had that great Game 7 winner, but if he didn't play terrible in, like, Game 6 and 5, like, it probably wouldn't have got to Game 7. So, like, I think they definitely are going to need more from him. Like, he's really the only, like, super dynamic offensive piece they have besides Marchand. And, like, Marchand was great, like, the whole series. And, like, if you don't have Pastrnak clicking, like, I don't know how you're going to overpower this Panthers team.
Yeah.
So I think they definitely need more out of him, and they need more depth scoring there. Like, Geeky stepped up.
They've
Geeky looked
been.
really good.
I feel like they've been good with
Kraken
depth.
legend.
They've been good with depth scoring. Like, their scoring's been pretty across the board. Like, Beecher had points, Geeky's had points, Lauren has
Yeah.
had points. Like, they're all pretty spread out. But yeah, they definitely do need Pasta to step up a bit
Yeah.
and play his role, because he was, like,
yeah, they
gone
just
that
they
first
just
series.
lost the first round matchup because of Pasta letting the series go to 7.
Yeah, he was just gone.
If the depth on Boston keeps playing at the level they are, and Pasta steps
Yeah.
up, I think they can give Florida a run for their money.
Yeah.
I do definitely think Florida's, like, a tougher, like, depth matchup than the Leafs
sure.
are. Like, I think their third line is a lot, like, harder to score on and control play on than, like, the Leafs is. So I think that, like, might be a challenge, but it wasn't in Game 1, so good luck for the
Yeah.
Bruins there. They took Game 1. I was a little stunned by that. I think it kind of makes sense. Like, the Panthers, like, they cruised through the first
Yeah.
round, and they were done a lot earlier than the Bruins were. So the Bruins were off, like, 2 days rest. They were, like, dialed in already. They were ready to go. I think the Panthers were a little, like, slow to start there. So I think it will be, like, a lot more competitive in the later games. But good start for the Bruins either way.
It's a good start, but it actually just gives me deja vu to last year when we went up 3-1 against Florida anyway. So, as confident as I am in the performance in Game 1, I can see this game easily going to 7 again, but hopefully with different results this year.
Also, how about Mason Lorak?
That's what
that
I'm
kid
saying.
is really good. I've been very impressed by
He's
him this
been
year. Like,
really
even
good.
even earlier in the year, I thought in the regular season I thought he looked pretty good too. But he stepped up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think they got a good piece going forward. I think they're somehow just managing to find, like, young guys that contribute.
Yeah.
It's like every year. It's like how it's like they have no depth, they have no prospects. It's like I didn't hear anybody talking about Mason Lohrei going into the year, or like even through the middle of the year. And then like he's been really good in the playoffs. So they just somehow spawn these guys out of nowhere.
No, exactly. He's been good, and he's been solid. It doesn't look like it's his first playoffs. Like, he's not nervous at all. He's playing really well. And I feel like every broadcast I watch, they talk about, like, who he's trying to emulate in his game. And, like, that shot, the goal he scored in Game 1 was crazy. And they just show, like, so many clips of him, like,
absolute snipe.
emulating, like, Jack Hughes, Trevor Zegras, and, like, those kind of players. And, like, U.S. national team players who have just been crazy talents the past few years. And I think he could definitely fit into a role like that in the coming years.
Yeah, and like the confidence on this kid in the playoffs is insane. Like I remember in the Leafs game, I forget which game it was, but against the Leafs, he tried the between the legs move. Like how often do you see a rookie defenseman try the between the legs move? And like it almost worked. Like I was like blown away by like how confident he was as a rookie, and I think he's a real good piece going forward. I think he could definitely develop into like a Lindholm replacement once he starts to fall off.
Yeah. And then moving to our last first-round matchup, Florida-Tampa, Battle of Florida. It was a pretty quick series to end, but what do we see in that one?
Okay. I mean, there's not much to say about this one. I thought with it being the Battle of Florida, I think Tampa maybe could have brought it 6 or even 7 just because of the heated rivalry between the two, but Florida's arguably the best team in the playoffs right now. Had one of the best regular seasons. It's a simple series to break down.
Yeah.
Tampa has no depth, man. Their depth is so bad. Like they're cooked, man.
They have
like
fallen
besides
off
the
from that
Kucherov,
2B.
Stamkos, Point, Hagel, yikes, no forward depth. And also, shut up, Mikhail Sergachev, man. Like I know he wasn't that good in this series, but like playing 80 days after fracturing like 2 things in your leg is just insane. What a warrior. So I think he deserves a little bit of credit for showing up and coming back. But yeah, no, this Tampa team has no depth. And I think
the
like
glory days of Tampa are over.
Yeah.
they have a lot of questions this offseason. Like Stamkos is a free agent, and I know Cirelli and Chernak, who haven't been like great for them. I know Cirelli's been better analytically. Like Chernak has been horrible analytically. They're in their last year before the no trade clause kicks in. I think it kicks in on July 1st. So I think they might want to move him quick. Or I think it was July 15th. Some point in the summer, their no trade clauses kick in. So they might want to move him quick if they need to free up some cap space. But yeah, they have a lot of question marks this offseason. The fall off of Tampa needs to be studied.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what a lot of these teams are going to do in the offseason. Like, for some of them, like Toronto and Tampa, it might have been their last shot with their core, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens this summer.
Yeah, and then there's teams like the Kings and the Predators who
Are on the up.
have had some first round exits, but I think they're going to improve next year.
Yeah, Predators for sure. That'll be a fun one to watch this offseason.
Yeah.
What are you going to say, Clint?
I forgot to add on the Leafs series. I just want to say I have seen so many Leafs fans online like blaming either Mitch Marner for not back checking or Samsonov for that last goal. That last goal, like singling out one Leafs player and blaming them is like so stupid to me.
It's such
Like
a Toronto
every
sports
single
fan thing.
Leafs player that was on the ice got outplayed on that play. Like it was a perfect set play by the Bruins. Like none of the forwards back checked, none of the defensemen hustled to the corner. Yeah, maybe Samsonov could have poke checked, but when he tried, he just got beat by Pasternak. Like like maybe if you have like a great goaltender, then you want him to stop that. But like I don't know. Like I've seen people like blaming Samsonov for that. It's like how are you going to blame him when 5 Leafs like don't do anything? And it's like I've seen people like singling out Marner for that same play, and it's like, okay, if there's like 3 people we're choosing to blame here on the same play, like maybe they're all the problem, not just one individually. You know what I mean? Like I don't know.
I will say though the Lindholm goal in the third, Samsonov should have been hugging that post.
Yeah.
It squeaked by his shoulder, and that was his bad. That goal should not have been a goal, but it. Like you said, it's tough to blame one person in a 7-game series that went to OT in Game 7.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
And
It's like Leafs fans are so quick to put the blame, especially on the last play of the series. Like that was overtime in Game 7. There's so many other goals in close games that could have shifted the momentum or changed the results. And you pick like the last play, of course, that one's going to stay in your mind, but, like, that one wasn't really anyone's fault. Well, it was everyone's fault.
And also, I don't know if you've seen how much hate Marner's getting online, because I don't know if you saw his quote, like, oh my god, 2 days ago, and he was like, he said we get treated as gods, and the fans don't understand what I think he was trying to convey there.
They're the ones who
I don't think he was saying,
it.
I'm a god, like, we're great. What he was trying to say is, like, the fans look up to them like they are a god, like they're supposed to be perfect. Yeah. Like, I think that's what was his point, is that the fans think the players are supposed to be perfect, and that they're supposed to be, like, amazing every time. And, like, I know, like, if you're paying a guy, like, $10.5 million, like, you want him to produce more than that, but, like, I think he does have a point. Like, the fans expect so much out of there. It's just like a pressure boiler out there. Sure. Like, the players have to be more worried than any other fan base of, like, if they don't perform. So yeah, I think the Marner hate has gotten a little too much, and also, like, they're all, like, all the fans online are like, first step of the offseason, trade Marner. It's like, guys, he has a full no trade clause. It's like, even if he does waive it to go somewhere, like, it's not going to be like a Nashville, or probably won't be a Nashville, like, teams like that. Like, I've seen people, like, mock, like, oh, he's going to waive it for the Ducks, we're going to get this great player. It's like, I don't think Marner's going to waive for a year the Ducks, and I don't know why these other teams would do it. It's like, if you're trading Marner, you're probably going to be disappointed with the return that you get, and you might as well just try and re-sign him. He already, like, made it clear he wants to be a part of the team going forward, and maybe you can, like, use these playoff like frauds, as you want to call it, as, like, leverage to get him to sign a lower cheaper deal. Or, like, even if you sign him to an around the same deal, like, the salary cap's going up, so you still will be getting more money to sign better players. So I think, like, yeah, I don't think trading is going to solve the problems. Like, I think just one more year of mediocrity, first round exit, whatever, and then you can really address the decor after the Tavares and Marner deals are up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it's time for Sheldon Keefe to go, though. I keep reverting it back to the Canucks and Rick Tocchet, but that's exactly what the Maple Leafs need to go through, and that's a culture change. Yeah. Keefe was simply the Babcock replacement. He was an interim head coach, and he stuck around, and I never really liked that decision. So, like, the Maple Leafs do not have a winning culture right now, and that needs to change. And the one thing that's going to do that is a coaching change behind the bench. I
do also think Shanahan has to go. Like, I think
that's another one. Yeah,
the core gets a lot of blame for, like, how bad the team does in the playoffs. Shanahan built the core. Like, it's his core. Like, it was him and Dubas.
Every single member of the core is getting over $10 million a year, and the fact that they didn't score over 2 goals in 6 of the 7 games is ridiculous.
Yeah, and Nylander was the only one of the core that got, like, 3 goals.
And he played, 2 or 3 games?
He played 4. Like, yeah. So I think Shanahan's got to go.
He led the team in goals in 3 less games than the entire roster.
Yeah. Also,
I think core needs to change, and Shanahan needs to go.
Like, I think Treliving could have put this team in a better spot at the deadline.
Yeah.
Like, I know that they maybe some of the other, like, top name defensemen weren't actually on the block, or he didn't want to give up that much. But, like, I know Easton Cowan he's a dog. I wouldn't want to trade him as a prospect right now. But, like, if you weren't willing to move, like, Fraser Minton to get, like, an elite defenseman to actually help you win now, like, I think that's a bad look. I don't know. I think this year with, like, the Bertuzzi and the Domi on, like, decent deals, like, Nyes look good. Like, I think they could have put themselves in a better spot to win. I think just, like, choosing to make your move, be like, okay, we're going to get Joel Edmondson and Ilya Lyubushkin. Like, it's like, I know they played, like, pretty decent this series,
Edmondson,
but, like, I think they needed to do more. They need to do more at the deadline to, like, actually be a real contender. Like, they stood no chance at all of winning a cup going into the playoffs this year.
Yeah. And one more off-season change that I've seen going around is giving Austin Matthews the captain. Just like I said with firing Sheldon Keefe, I think a culture change by switching the captain from Tavares to Matthews, where, like, everybody already rallies around Matthews. So that's just a small change that I think would help the playoff chances and the overall culture in the locker room of the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, I think what might help maybe more, just take away the C from Tavares and just don't give it to anybody. Like, I know plenty of teams have walked with no captains. Like, truly, who is the leader on this team? Like, Matthews, like, I know they kind of, like, rally around him, like, on the ice.
Yeah.
But, like, is he really, like, a leader, a captain?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I don't think so.
Like, I know, like, Marchand is a way worse player than him. Like, I know everyone would take Matthews over
give
him.
it to Ryan
But, like,
Reeves.
Marchand's a better
Leader,
captain.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
'cause
Like,
your
I don't
most
think the
talented
Leafs
player
have that
isn't-
leader guy.
Your most talented
Yeah,
player
and
is
if you don't have that leader guy, like, don't have a captain. I don't know. Don't just give it to someone because you want to swap it. Like, I think they got to earn it. And I think taking away the C from Tavares and not giving it to anybody would be, like, a culture shift.
It
You know what I
would
mean?
be a statement. And then, just to wrap things up, we touched on it quite a bit, but Florida, Boston, second round, any predictions?
If like we said, if Pasta steps up, I could definitely see it going to 7. But Bobrovsky's one of the best playoff goalies in the last decade. I think I'm going to go Panthers in 7.
I think I'm going to go Panthers in 6 here. I think Boston's, like, lack of top-end talent will really show. I think, like, this first game, they had a great start, but I think Florida was just, like, half asleep after playing a really easy Tampa Bay team in the first round and having a lot of rest going into this game. I think once they actually start playing more regularly, I think we'll see the Florida that we know and we all think they are. So I think Florida will be able to figure it out and end up beating the Bruins here.
Yeah, I definitely think it's Florida's series to lose, but I'm hoping for Boston in 6 or 7, so we'll see.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people, like, hate Boston, but, like, if Boston went on a run this year, like, I wouldn't mind. Like, no one thought they were that good. I know, like, and, like, Swayman is really likable.
Yeah,
like,
and
the
he's-
Swayman-Ullmark duo is very
When
I
he's
love
stepping into
them.
that primary goalie role, which I'm liking.
Yeah, and even, like, Pastrnak, like, he's a fun superstar. Like, he's got personality, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I would not hate a Boston run this year.
No, me neither. I'd love it, actually. And then, just as we wrap things up here, we've talked about every series that happened, everyone that's going on right now. Just by judging on how everyone's looked in the playoffs so far, any predictions for that cup winner?
I think I might go with Edmonton.
Really?
Yeah.
I think they have the easiest run.
Yeah.
I don't know, because they look dominant against LA, and, like, LA was kind of a free series. I think with Demko out, like, I think they won't struggle with the Canucks. And then, like, I think the Central or the Western Conference Final, like, the team they play in the Central Division will be a tough matchup. But I think both of those Central Division teams are going to have, like, tougher fights to even make the Western Conference Final. So I think Edmonton will be a little bit more rested, a little bit less banged up than, like, whoever comes out of the Central. And, like, same thing, like, the East, like, the Panthers, Bruins, like, Rangers, and Hurricanes, like, whoever comes out of there, like, they're gonna be tuckered out. And I think like, they most likely, like, all the other teams will have to play 2 hard opponents, and I think the Oilers only have to play, like, 1 before the Cup final. So
I don't know. I feel like if Demko comes back right in the middle of the series, it'll tire out the Oilers equally as hard as the East and the rest of the West. But obviously, I'm cheering for the Canucks, but I'm going to go the Rangers. I still think they're the most well-rounded roster in the playoffs right now, coming off a absolute clobbering, feeling confident, having momentum, winning game 1 against the Hurricanes in a close match. I got the Rangers this year.
okay, I'm pulling a Corwin. I know he hates him, the Canucks a lot. I think they might be the weakest team left in the playoffs, even if Demko's there. Like, it's between them and Boston for me.
What?
And, like,
Really?
Boston just has more playoff experience. Like, I don't think Vancouver is better than Dallas or Colorado or Edmonton or Carolina or New York or Florida. Like, it's just between them and Boston to me. Like, they were the biggest overachievers in the regular season this year, and a lot of their guys haven't really stepped up in the playoffs. And, like, Hronek has had no points and was a -2 in that first round. And, like, they really relied on him when they were actually, like, on that heater at the start of the year. Like, I don't know. I think they're huge frauds. Like, I might get a lot of hate for this. I'm sorry, Cam.
Yeah,
I'm
hate
sorry
from
to
me
Max
and
if he ever
Cam.
listens to this. But no, I don't think they're that
Clint's
good.
just
I
coming
don't
for our
know.
favorite teams.
I think
I will die on
I
this
think-
hill. I'm sorry.
I think the worst team in the playoffs is undoubtedly Dallas.
Yeah, I'd
They
agree.
have no firepower on
Dallas.
offense. Yeah, they've like Katie said earlier, they have not changed their roster in like
It's not working.
5 years, except for adding Logan Stankoven,
Who's been good.
who played
Wyatt
half
Johnston
the
is a
season. He's good. Yeah, Wyatt Johnston, who's
He's
new.
not going to carry your team
play
to a
it.
cup. Like
No.
He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna carry them to a cup. I don't think they're cup winners, but I think they are a better team than Vancouver. Like I don't know. The
know.
decor. Like I think for playoffs, I might take Heiskanen over Hughes. Like for the regular season, you'd obviously take Hughes, but like Heiskanen's better defensively, and like what did he play?
No, he's not.
Hughes played 23 minutes. Heiskanen played 27 minutes. Like he's just a horse out there, and like the rest of the decor, like Tanev's great shutdown. Ryan Suter's a bit of a cone. Harley was great in the regular season. I don't know. Like I think the Stars are a better team. I don't know.
Obviously, Hronek didn't play up to his maximum abilities this series, but having the adaptability between their defenses, having two huge just body bags of Tyler Myers and Nikita Zadorov, and offensive skillful defensemen like Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek. I feel like they have some of the most diverse defensive duos out of any team in the playoffs. And I feel like that goes underrated because not many people have 2-6-7 towers on their roster, plus the Norris favorite and Philip Hronek, who, like I said, did not perform well this series.
Yeah, I don't know.
Canucks overall just underperformed, and they still beat the Preds in 6.
I think the Preds were the worst team in the West. So like I like beating the Preds in 6 isn't that much of a flex when you got outplayed in 2 of the games you won. So I don't know.
I think the Kings were a bit worse than the Preds, but
that's fair.
I don't know. Just looking at how bad the Canucks underperformed this series and the possibility of Demko coming back before it's too late, hopefully. I think the Canucks have a possibility to pull it out. The Oilers are known chokers when it comes to playoffs.
I got Oilers in 5.
I think whoever wins that Vancouver Edmonton
5 is
series,
crazy.
like has a clear path to the cup. Like I don't. Well, Colorado's good, but I think Colorado will win that series. But by then, they've kind of exhausted all their playoff run. Like I don't think they could make a deep run this playoffs. I think they'll win the next one and lose out in the conference final.
Just saying, the goal differential in the regular season between the Canucks and the Oilers were pretty a nice sight.
Look at the PTO. Also, like, my family is Wings fans. I've watched Hronek for so long. Like, he's not as good as he was at the start of the year. Like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I watched him a lot. I like Hronek, but, like, I think he does get over it. And, like, I've seen Canucks fans calling for Tyler Myers to be traded for, like, 4 years. Like, I don't think he's that good. Like, he's tall, but, like, he's not.
He's definitely had the best. He's definitely had the best season in those past 4 years.
Yeah. Like, I think he's decent, but I don't know. I think they are a weak team. And, like, Pettersson did not show up at all. And, like, no. I don't know.
Same thing with Pasternak and Pettersson, though. Like, if they can show up in this next round, their team will be eternally grateful.
Yeah, there's just, in the first round, it's hard to judge because there were a lot of teams that underperformed. But, I mean, the Canucks underperformed and still won in 6. So, like, they're a grinded out team when it comes to it. And if they have their stars play up to their full potential, they can get it. They can get out of the West.
Well, only time will tell.
I'm on that Canucks fraud agenda.
Mm-hmm.
We will have to reconvene after the next round or two and discuss.
Anti-Nucks.
Yeah, the Canucks are gonna like sweep the Oilers after I said this.
I'm gonna go there.
They're gonna go 12-0 to win the cup.
Yeah, Silovs is getting a shutout every single game. I hope you know that.
Bold prediction.
If Silovs wins the Conn Smythe, oh my,
that'd be amazing. Demko's gonna come back and be benched.
Yeah. Gonna get traded in the offseason. Silovs is the guy.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Should we do a Conn Smythe pick?
Go for it.
McDavid.
Okay. I'd probably go Shesterkin. I think he's gonna have a great second half.
That's fair.
Second half of the playoffs.
I'm not venturing a pick. I actually don't know. I have no thoughts.
Artur Silov.
Mason Lowry.
Yes. Linus Ullmark. Comeback of the playoffs.
The backup goalie is gonna win the Conn
Yeah, he's
Smythe.
gonna...
Ilya Samsonov?
Wait, guys. Was it Mitch Marner? Thank you for joining us on the Shutter Sports Podcast. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you find your podcast, and don't be shy to join the discussion on any platform at Shutter Sports Media. Until next time, I'm Katie LeBoutillier, joined by Cam Stirling and Clint Householder, and this has been the Shutter Sports Podcast.